I remember that morning as clearly as if it were carved into my bones. The way the rain streaked down the courthouse windows. The way every single person in that Portland courtroom had already decided who I was before I even opened my mouth. A failure. A parasite. A man who had wasted 9 years of a good woman's life. I sat alone at the defendant's table, my coat frayed at the cuffs, my briefcase old enough to look like it belonged to someone's grandfather. Across from me sat my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, Evangeline Merriweather, 35 years old, golden hair swept into an elaborate updo. She wore a cream-colored suit that screamed old money and new lawyers. Flanking her like guards at a palace gate were her parents, Cornelius and Sophronia Ashworth, silver hair gleaming, pearls tight around her neck. They looked at me the way one looks at a stain that won't wash out. This was it, the end of 9 years of marriage. 9 years of being told I wasn't enough. The judge banged his gavel. We'll begin with testimony from the plaintiff. Cornelius Ashworth stood first. He moved like a man accustomed to rooms going quiet when he entered them. Your Honor, he began, his voice deep and resonant, my daughter has financially supported this man for nearly a decade. Julian Hartwell has contributed nothing to this family, no savings, no assets, no meaningful income of any kind. He paused for effect. The courtroom was silent except for the rain against the windows. He calls himself an entrepreneur, a tech consultant, but in 9 years of marriage, I have never seen evidence of a single successful venture. Just vague promises and a laptop he stares at for hours, accomplishing nothing. I sat perfectly still. My hands rested flat on the table. I'd learned a long time ago that the best defense against people like Cornelius Ashworth was to give them nothing. We paid for their home in Lake Oswego. We paid for the car he drives. We paid for our granddaughter's private school tuition. We even paid for his so-called business expenses, Cornelius said, his lip curling in disgust. My wife and I have subsidized this man's delusions for years, and now he has the audacity to ask for joint custody of our granddaughter and a share of the marital assets. He turned to look at me. His eyes were cold, sharp. Julian Hartwell is a parasite, Your Honor, and parasites don't deserve anything. He sat down. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Next came Sophronia, approaching the stand like she was walking to her own daughter's funeral. Your Honor, I have tried so hard to support this marriage. I welcomed Julian into our family despite our reservations. But Julian never tried. He never worked. He spent his days in that home office we paid for, claiming he was building something. But what? Where's the evidence? Her voice rose slightly. My daughter worked 60-hour weeks to support them while Julian played on his computer like a child. And now he wants to take our granddaughter away from us? A man with no job, no income, no prospects. He's not fit to raise a child. Then came the financial evidence. Evangeline's attorney, Preston Hart, approached with a stack of documents. Your Honor, I'd like to submit exhibits showing the Ashworth family's financial contributions to the marriage. Mortgage payments for the home, car payments, private school tuition for Clementine Hartwell, 7 years of payments, every single one from an Ashworth account. He was building a fortress of evidence brick by brick. Meanwhile, Mr. Hartwell's personal bank account shows an average balance of $4,000. Barely enough to survive, let alone support a family. Preston turned to face me directly. Your Honor, this is not a complicated case. Mr. Hartwell has no stable income, no assets, no ability to provide for a child. The evidence is clear. He has none. The judge was taking notes, his expression skeptical. I could see the conclusion forming in his mind. The same conclusion everyone in this room had already reached. But what none of them knew was that every single word they'd just spoken was a lie. Not a lie in the legal sense. The facts were accurate. But the story they told, that was fiction. And I had been waiting 9 years to reveal the truth. The judge looked up. Mr. Hartwell, you're entitled to present your case. Do you have evidence to counter these claims? This was it. I stood slowly, reached for my briefcase and pulled out a folder. Thick, organized, tab-divided sections with printed documents. Yes, Your Honor, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. I'd like to submit financial records of my own. Preston Hart actually laughed. Your Honor, we've already reviewed Mr. Hartwell's bank statements. They show nothing. Not those statements, I said quietly. Different ones. I handed the folder to the clerk. Judge Harold Brennan opened it, skepticism clear on his face. He put on his reading glasses and began to read. His eyebrows rose. He flipped pages faster. Then he stopped, looked up at me, then back down. And then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not cruelly, in astonishment. The courtroom erupted in whispers. What did the judge see? Judge Brennan held up a hand for silence. Mr. Hartwell, are these numbers accurate? Yes, Your Honor, completely accurate. All verified by the IRS. He cleared his throat. For the record, I'm reading from Mr. Julian Hartwell's tax returns for the past 5 years. Income sources include software licensing agreements, equity holdings in 3 separate technology companies, consulting fees, and intellectual property royalties. He paused. The silence was absolute. Average annual income over this 5-year period, $840,000. The courtroom exploded. Gasps. Actual, audible gasps of shock. Evangeline's mouth fell open. Sophronia's hand flew to her chest. Cornelius went pale. There's no mistake, Judge Brennan continued. I have 5 years of tax returns here, all properly filed. Not only that, these earnings were deposited into accounts held solely in Mr. Hartwell's name, accounts that predate his marriage by 7 years. Every eye in the room was on me. Evangeline looked like she'd been struck. Your Honor, I began, I founded a cybersecurity software company when I was 25 years old. When I was 28, I sold that company for $8.2 million. I used that money to invest in other startups, to license my software, and to do consulting work. Cornelius made a strangled noise of disbelief. I met Evangeline 2 years after that sale. When she introduced me to her family, I saw immediately how they viewed wealth, how they measured people. They decided I was beneath them based on my old car and off-the-rack suit. I looked directly at Cornelius. I made a choice then. I decided not to tell them about my finances. I wanted to see if Evangeline loved me for who I was. I wanted to see if her family would accept me based on character instead of bank statements. They didn't. For 9 years, I let them believe I was struggling. I watched them look down on me, call me useless, treat me like a charity case. And I said nothing because I had a daughter, and I wanted her to have a relationship with her grandparents. Judge Brennan nodded slowly. And these accounts, Mr. Hartwell, the $840,000 per year, where did it go? Invested, Your Honor, in trust funds for my daughter's future, in retirement accounts, in charitable donations. I lived modestly because I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. The judge looked at Evangeline and her family with clear disapproval. So the entire foundation of their case, Mr. Hartwell's financial incompetence, is completely false. That's correct, Your Honor. Preston Hart was scrambling. Your Honor, the defendant deliberately concealed his financial status. That's privacy, Judge Brennan cut him off sharply. Mr. Hartwell had no legal obligation to disclose his personal finances to his in-laws. The only fraud I see here is the picture you've painted of a man who you claim is destitute when he's actually quite solvent. He removed his glasses. I'm ready to rule. The courtroom went dead silent. Evangeline grabbed her lawyer's arm. Cornelius looked like he'd aged 10 years. Based on the evidence presented, Mr. Julian Hartwell has demonstrated both financial stability and a clear commitment to his daughter's welfare. Custody of Clementine Hartwell is awarded to the father, Julian Hartwell. All assets held in Mr. Hartwell's name remain his sole property. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. Evangeline stood up, screaming, You lied to me! You let me think! I let you show me who you really were, I said quietly. A social worker brought in Clementine from the children's waiting area. She was 7 years old, dark hair in a ponytail, wearing the blue dress she'd picked out that morning. Daddy! Her face lit up. I knelt down and she ran into my arms. Are we going home? She asked. Yeah, sweetheart. We're going home. I walked out into the rain, my daughter's hand warm in mine. They'd called me a freeloader, a parasite. They'd been wrong about everything, and I'd waited 9 years to prove it. The months after the trial were peaceful. I bought a house on the outskirts of Seattle near a lake. We'd moved from Portland for a fresh start, leaving behind the house in Lake Oswego that the Ashworths had paid for. Clementine and I built a routine: morning pancakes, walking to the bus stop, homework at the kitchen table. I was fully present in my daughter's life for the first time. Evangeline exercised her visitation rights for the first 2 months, but her visits became sporadic. By the third month, Clementine stopped asking when mommy was coming. We built a treehouse together. Those were good months, the best months I'd had in years. But peace never lasts. It started small. Clementine complained of being tired, then stomach aches. She started looking pale, her skin taking on a grayish tone. I took her to the pediatrician. Probably just a virus, Dr. Rachel Morrison said. If it doesn't improve in a week, bring her back. But she got worse. The fatigue became overwhelming. Then I noticed her skin turning yellow. Jaundice. Terror gripped my chest. I took her back to Dr. Morrison. This time she ordered blood work, liver function tests. We'll have the results in 48 hours, she said. I barely slept those 2 nights. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Mr. Hartwell, I need you to bring Clementine to the hospital immediately. Her liver enzymes are critically elevated. Seattle Children's Hospital admitted her immediately. They ran scans. After 6 hours, a team of doctors entered the consultation room. Dr. James Whitfield, the hepatologist, spoke first. Mr. Hartwell, your daughter has acute liver failure. The words didn't make sense. What does that mean? It means her liver is shutting down. She needs a transplant. Soon. How soon? Weeks, maybe a month at most. The pediatric waiting list for deceased donors is extremely long. The only option is a living donor transplant, preferably a blood relative. Test me, right now. They ran the test that same day. The results took 2 days, the longest 2 days of my life. I didn't leave the hospital. Dr. Whitfield found me on the second evening. His expression told me everything. I'm sorry, Mr. Hartwell. You're not a compatible donor. Blood type incompatibility, and you have markers of a previous hepatitis B infection that disqualify you. He paused. What about Clementine's mother? Evangeline, the woman who'd tried to destroy me in court, who'd stopped visiting our daughter. But this wasn't about me. This was about saving Clementine. I stepped outside and called Evangeline. Julian? Her voice was suspicious. Why are you calling? It's Clementine. She's sick. She has acute liver failure and needs a transplant. I was tested. I'm not a match. I need you to get tested to see if you can be her donor. Long pause. Well, Julian, this is a lot to ask. This is surgery, major surgery. There are risks. I know there are risks, but Clementine is dying. Please. I'll think about it. I need time. There is no time. I'll call you back. She hung up. 4 days passed with no word. 4 days of watching my daughter deteriorate. On the 5th day, a text. We need to meet, in person. You, me, and lawyers. We met 2 days later at an expensive Seattle restaurant. Evangeline arrived with Dashiell Crane, her boyfriend, and a lawyer. After excruciating small talk, Evangeline got to the point. I've thought about your request. I'm willing to do it, but there are conditions. She slid a contract across the table. What is this? Compensation for the emotional distress and health risks. $3 million. I stared at her. You want money to save your daughter's life. I want fair compensation for an enormous sacrifice. Liver donation is serious surgery. Recovery takes months. There are risks. Take it or leave it. I felt sick, but Clementine's face floated in my mind. Fine, I'll pay it. I'll need the money transferred before I agree to be tested. Full amount, up front. I had the money. It would hurt, but I had it. I'll have it transferred within 48 hours. The money transferred on a Wednesday morning. I watched $3 million disappear. Years of work, gone. But Clementine was alive. For now. Evangeline arrived at the hospital the next day for testing. The results came back Friday evening. Dr. Whitfield was cautiously optimistic. Evangeline is an excellent match. Everything aligns perfectly. I'd like to schedule surgery for next Wednesday. 6 days, my daughter would be saved in less than a week. On Tuesday evening, the night before surgery, I stayed late. Clementine was being prepped. I read to her until she fell asleep, then prayed harder than I'd ever prayed. My phone buzzed around 9 p.m. Evangeline, we need to talk. Call me. Ice ran through my veins. I called her. Julian, I've been thinking about the surgery. It's a bigger risk than I realize. I need more money. My heart started pounding. Evangeline, the surgery is tomorrow morning. I know, that's why I'm calling now. I need another 2 million. I couldn't breathe. You already have 3 million. We have a contract. And I have the right to withdraw consent. 2 million more or I don't show up. Clementine will die without this transplant. Then you know what you need to do. She hung up. I worked through the night, mortgaged my house, liquidated retirement accounts. By 6 a.m., I had $2 million. I transferred it. She replied, "See you soon." Surgery was scheduled for 8 a.m. 7 a.m., I sat with my parents in the surgical waiting area. 8 a.m. came and went. 8:30, 9, 9:30. Dr. Rhodes emerged from the OR area, her expression grave. "Mr. Hartwell, we have a problem. Mrs. Merriweather hasn't arrived. She never showed up. We've called repeatedly, no answer. She checked out of her hotel last night." The floor disappeared beneath me. I ran to her hotel. The concierge confirmed it. She checked out at 11 p.m. with her companion. Significant luggage. She'd fled with $5 million while my daughter lay dying. I called the police, called the FBI. "She took $5 million and left," I screamed. "My daughter is dying." I drove back to the hospital. Dr. Whitfield was waiting. "Without a donor, we can't proceed. Mr. Hartwell, without a donor, she has days, maybe a week." The next 4 days exist as fragments. I never left Clementine's side. She slipped in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she'd ask, "Daddy, when is Mommy coming?" I had no answer. On the 4th day, her condition deteriorated rapidly. That evening, Dr. Whitfield said, "I think you should call family to say goodbye." My parents came. We stood around her bed crying, telling her we loved her. Early the 5th morning, she woke briefly. "Daddy, I'm here, baby. I don't feel good." "I know, sweetheart. Am I dying now?" "It's okay, Daddy," she whispered. "Don't be sad." Those were her last words. At 6:42 a.m., the monitor went from beeping to one long, sustained tone. Dr. Whitfield shook his head. "I'm sorry. My daughter was dead. I held her for hours. The hospital staff let me. My father finally pulled me away. I collapsed in the hallway and I cried like I'd never cried before. Clementine was gone, and Evangeline had killed her. The funeral was held on a gray Saturday. The casket was small, white, covered in daisies. My parents attended. Clementine's teacher, a few friends. No Ashworths, no Evangeline. After everyone left, I knelt beside her grave. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I promise the people who did this will pay." The FBI caught them 2 weeks later. Agent Jennifer Walsh called. "We've apprehended Evangeline Merriweather and Dashiell Crane. Montana, 50 miles from the Canadian border. We found $4.7 million in cash, fake passports, tickets to the Cayman Islands. They'd been planning to flee the country." "What about her parents?" "We arrested them yesterday. Phone records show they knew. Cornelius transferred $200,000 to Evangeline 2 days before surgery. They're all being charged." The trial came 4 months later. The courthouse was packed. Media everywhere. Thomas Bradford, the prosecutor, laid out the case with devastating precision. "This is a case about greed, about people who put money before a child's life." He showed the jury everything. The text messages, the bank transfers, the traffic cameras catching them fleeing. On the 3rd day, I took the stand. I testified for hours, reliving every moment. When I described the morning surgery was canceled and the 4 days watching her die, several jury members cried. "Did your daughter ask about her mother during those final days?" Bradford asked. I nodded. "She asked when Mommy was coming. She asked if Mommy was going to help her, and I told her yes because I believed it." I looked at Evangeline. "But I was wrong. She let her die. For money." After 10 days, the jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. 2 weeks later came sentencing. I gave a victim impact statement holding Clementine's photo. "This is my daughter. She was 7 years old when she died. She loved butterflies. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She trusted her mother, and I believed her mother wouldn't let her die. But I was wrong." Judge Brennan delivered the sentences. Evangeline Merriweather, 18 years in federal prison, Dashiell Crane, 7 years. Cornelius and Sophronia. Ashworth, 2 years each. Full restitution ordered. I drove to the cemetery. They paid for what they did to you, baby girl. Justice had been served. It would never bring her back. But it was something. The months after were hollow. I stayed with my parents, unable to work, unable to focus. The restitution money came back. 4.7 million in seized cash plus additional funds from liquidated assets, totaling 4.8 million. But the money felt cursed. Every dollar represented Clementine's suffering. 6 months passed. Then one April afternoon, sitting on a bench outside the Olympia Library, a woman sat down. Her daughter played nearby. The woman's phone rang. I overheard, "I don't know how we'll afford the transplant testing. 50,000. She started crying. "Is your daughter sick?" I asked. "Lisa, that's Maya." She gestured to her daughter. "Kidney disease. She needs a transplant, but we can't afford it. About 180,000 total." I stared at Maya playing on the grass. Dark hair like Clementine. I pulled out my phone. "I'm going to help you." "What?" "No. I know what it's like to watch your child die because you can't save them." Over the next week, I covered all of Maya's medical expenses. The surgery was successful. When I saw Maya's smile, healthy, alive, something shifted inside me. I couldn't save Clementine, but I could honor her by saving others. I met with my attorney. "I want to start a charitable foundation for families facing transplant costs." We spent 2 months setting it up. The Clementine Hartwell Foundation for Pediatric Transplant Support. I funded it with $3 million from the restitution money. Applications came in immediately. A family in California needing $85,000. Approved. A couple in Texas needing $120,000. Approved. Every application, every child's photo, I saw Clementine. The foundation helped 50 families the first year, then 200. By year 5, over 500 families. I moved back to Seattle, worked full-time running the foundation. I was living again. Not the life I'd planned, but a life with purpose. On what would have been Clementine's 13th birthday, I visited her grave. 634 kids helped so far, sweetheart. Because of you. The pain would always be there, but I'd learned to transform it into something that helped others. That was my revenge. Not against Evangeline. She was already paying. My revenge was against the cruelty of what happened. My revenge was making sure it didn't happen to anyone else. I approved 3 more applications that day. A 6-year-old in Arizona, a 12-year-old in Michigan, a 4-year-old in Florida. Because that's what Clementine would have wanted. That's what love looks like after betrayal. That's what justice looks like when courts aren't enough. They called me a freeloader in court. They tried to erase me and take everything I loved. They failed. Because I built something that will outlive all of us. Something that saves lives. Something that bears my daughter's name. That's the real payback. Not revenge. Redemption.